The sound was not a sound. It was a frequency that reached into my marrow and stayed there. It was the high-pitched whine of 2 tons of steel meeting 40 tons of freight at 65 miles per hour. I remember the clock on my dashboard, the little digital glow, 7:42 a.m. I was in the middle of a sentence. I was telling Kesha about the parish council meeting we had scheduled for Tuesday evening at 6:30. I remember the exact word I was saying. The word was stewardship. And then the truck crossed the median. I saw the grill of that semi. It was silver. It was huge. It occupied my entire windshield for a fraction of a second. I didn't have time to pray. I didn't even have time to move my foot to the brake. There was just this white, hot flash inside my skull, and then the noise of the safety glass shattering. But it didn't sound like glass breaking. It sounded like a million tiny bells all ringing at the same pitch, a shimmering hum that pushed everything else out of the air. Then I was gone. I wasn't in the driver's seat of that Ford anymore. I was standing, if that is even the word for it, exactly 52 feet above the asphalt of the I-90. I know it was 52 feet because I could see the signs on the overpass, and I was level with the top of the green exit marker. I was looking down at the roof of my own car. It was crumpled like a piece of heavy-duty aluminum foil you've balled up and thrown in the bin. I saw the truck. It had jackknifed across 3 lanes. I saw the steam rising from the radiator. I looked through the roof of my car. It was like looking through a sheer curtain, and I saw myself. I saw a 62-year-old man slumped over the steering wheel. I saw the blood on the side of his head. I saw Dorothy in the back seat. Her church hat had fallen onto the floor mat. I saw Kesha. And for a moment, I felt this spike of panic, this urgent, jagged need to get back down there and pull them out. I am the priest. I am the one who is supposed to offer the last rites, not the one who needs them. But as soon as that thought arrived, the shimmering hum of the glass got louder. It was like a hand reached out and turned a dial in my mind. The panic didn't go away. It just became data. It became a set of facts I was observing rather than a feeling I was having. And that's when the view started to expand. It didn't happen fast. It happened with a kind of mechanical precision. One moment I'm looking at a highway accident in Chicago. The next I am rising. The city is shrinking below me like a map being folded up. I saw the grid of the streets, the thousands of cars like little ants stuck in the morning rush. I saw the lake, that deep, cold blue. And then I was higher. I was so high that I could see the curve of the earth, the way the light from the morning sun was hitting the fields of the Midwest. And I saw the math. Looking at this from my research notes, I need to stop here because Thomas is describing something that appears in about 9% of our collected accounts from people in positions of leadership or community oversight. In my research, we look at this as a specific kind of data persistence. Basically, it's like a radio that stays on and broadcasting even after you've pulled the vacuum tubes out of the back. The signal is still vibrating in the air, it just doesn't have a speaker to turn it into noise yet. What's happening in Thomas's experience is what we'd call a kernel-level system scan. Think of it like your computer running a deep check on its hard drive while the main screen is frozen. The user, in this case Thomas's physical body, is out of commission, but the underlying consciousness has been granted access to the root files of the environment he lives in. I've mapped this against 3 other accounts from urban clergy in the Chicago area over the last 2 years. They all describe this sudden, detached clarity regarding the state of the system. But Thomas is the first one to give us specific metrics on the food supply. He's looking at the country not as a beautiful landscape, but as a series of failing calculations. Here's how Thomas remembers it happening. I was looking at America, but I wasn't seeing the Purple Mountain majesties. I was seeing the logistics. I was seeing the grain silos in Iowa and Nebraska. I could see them as if I had an X-ray vision. I saw the levels inside them. I saw silos that were supposed to be 85% full sitting at 30%. I saw the trucks on the roads, thousands of them, and I understood the timing of their arrivals. It was like a giant, invisible clockwork. But the gears were missing teeth. I saw the grocery stores in the cities. I saw the shelves. I could see the back rooms where the pallets are kept. I saw that the just-in-time delivery system we all rely on was stretched so thin it looked like a spider web in a gale. I saw a bread shelf in a store on the south side of Chicago. I saw it go from full to empty in exactly 4 hours and 12 minutes, and I knew with a certainty that felt like a weight in my chest that the trucks to refill it were 3 days away. I saw the people, thousands of families in high-rise apartments. I saw them opening their cupboards. I saw the contents. Most of them had 3 days of food. Some had 5, almost none had 14. And as I watched this, I felt this incredible pressure to tell them. I am 62 years old. I have spent 22 years sitting at a kitchen table praying for a vision, praying for God to show me that He sees me. And now that He is showing me, I am terrified because I realize we have forgotten how to survive. The vision moved to the fields. I saw the soil. I saw parts of it that looked gray and tired, like a battery that couldn't hold a charge anymore. I saw farmers standing by their fences. I could see their thoughts. They were looking at their equipment and looking at their seed counts, and the numbers weren't adding up. They were trying to solve an equation that had no solution. And then I saw the date. It wasn't written in the sky. It was just an understanding that arrived in my mind like a delivery, June 21st. I understood that this was when the thinning would begin to manifest in a way that people could no longer ignore. Not a collapse, not yet. A thinning. The prices would jump. The choices would disappear. The realization would hit the heart like cold water. And I was seeing it all from 50 miles up while my body was dying in a Ford on the Dan Ryan Expressway. Suddenly, the aerial view flickered. It was like a bad connection on an old television. I felt the steering wheel again. I felt the heat of the airbag. I felt the smell of the ozone and the burnt rubber. It was agonizing. The pain was like a rhythmic pulse, beating against the aerial view. I was in 2 places at once. I was looking at the grain silos of the Midwest, and I was feeling the ribs on my left side snap. I tried to scream, but I had no air. Then, the flicker stopped. The pain vanished, but it didn't leave me. It just moved to the background, like a radio playing in another room. And that's when the light changed. It wasn't the sun anymore. It was a person. He was standing beside me in the air. I need to stop here and look at something. This is the network partition moment. In our research, when the narrator is caught between the aerial scan and the physical trauma, we usually see a breakdown in the data stream. Thomas calls it a flicker. In the beta framework, we call it latency. It's the delay between the system trying to reconnect to the body and the consciousness trying to stay in the archive. Thomas is 62. He spent his life as a priest, which means his operating system is built around the idea of being a shepherd. When he sees the math of the failing food system, his brain isn't processing it as a political problem. He's processing it as a legacy code error. He's seeing that the knowledge of the grandparents, the ability to grow, to store, to preserve, has been deleted from the current generation's active memory. Now look at the social proof here. We have 7 other accounts in the database from the Chicago metro area that mention a logistical dread during an NDE, but Thomas is the only one who has provided a specific manifestation date, June 21st. Let me pause the story for a moment. I have to be honest with you, this part of the data bothers me. I'm an analyst. I like patterns that I can explain with physics, but when a 62-year-old man who hasn't had a vision in 22 years describes the thinning of the American supply chain with the precision of a logistics manager, my models start to break, and that's usually when I know we're looking at something real. Listen to what happened next, in his own words. He didn't arrive with a fanfare. He didn't have wings that blocked out the sky. He was just there, beside me. I knew it was Angel Gabriel. I didn't have to ask. It was like a file in my head had been opened, and the name was the first thing I read. He was tall, but his height didn't feel physical. It felt like a measure of his authority. He wasn't looking at the crash below, he was looking at me. He didn't speak with his mouth. It was a communication that arrived all at once, a massive download of understanding that I had to piece together word by word once I got back. He showed me that what I was seeing wasn't a punishment, it was a consequence. He used that word specifically. A consequence of choices. He showed me that we had handed over the keys to our survival to people we don't know and systems we don't understand. He showed me a child in a grocery store holding a box of cereal, and he showed me the 1,500 miles that cereal had to travel to get to that child's hand. He showed me the fragility of that 1,500 miles. It was like a thread of glass. Then he showed me the grandparents. He took my view and shifted it. I saw my own grandmother, Margaret. I saw her in her kitchen in 1974. I saw her canning green beans. I saw the jars on the shelf. I saw the way she saved the seeds from the pumpkins. Gabriel showed me that her hands contained a code, a set of instructions for how to live when the world gets hard. And then he showed me the current generation. He showed me the empty hands. That's the phrase that stayed with me. The empty hands of the parents. They have the technology, they have the speed, but they have no code. If the thread of glass breaks, they don't know how to snap a bean. They don't know how to test the soil. They don't know how to save a seed. Gabriel communicated to me that this was a spiritual neglect. That was the term. He showed me that growing food and tending the earth isn't just work. It is a form of prayer. It is how we stay connected to the Creator. And by walking away from it, we had disconnected ourselves from the very thing that sustains us. He turned to me, and the pressure of his presence became immense. It felt like I was being compressed. The warning is a gift of time, he communicated, not to create fear, to create a response. He showed me that the people who loved God had been lulled into a passive faith. They were waiting for a miracle while they had a backyard full of weeds. They were asking for bread while they had a bag of seeds in the garage they didn't know how to plant. He was urgent. He was pressured. He made me understand that I had to carry this back, not just to my little Thursday group, not just to my parish, to anyone who would listen. June 21st, he repeated. It was like a stamp being pressed into my mind. The manifestation begins. Tell them to plant. Tell them to store. Tell them to teach the children. A family with seeds is a family with options. And then he showed me the embers. Across the map of America, I saw little lights starting to flicker on. One in a backyard in a suburb, one on a balcony in a city, one in a small rural patch. These were the people who were already preparing. He showed me that their preparation wasn't just for themselves. It was so they could be the helpers. You cannot give from an empty hand, he told me. I looked down at the highway one last time. I saw the paramedics. I saw them using the jaws of life on my car. I saw the sparks. I saw them pulling Kesha out. She was alive. I felt a surge of relief that nearly pulled me back into my body right then. But Gabriel wasn't finished. He held me there for one more second. He pointed to a single seed, a tiny dried up bean seed. In this, he said, is the archive of life. Do not let it be lost. Then the high-pitched hum of the glass returned. It became deafening. It drowned out the vision. It drowned out the light. I felt the cold, the terrible biting cold of the hospital room. From everything I've tracked so far, Thomas just gave us the core of the beta framework analysis. He's describing the archive of life, which we can view as legacy data, and the empty hands, which is a code deletion event across a whole generation. Think about it like this. If you've ever tried to run an old piece of software on a new computer and it won't work because the drivers are missing, that's what Gabriel is describing. The human system is trying to enter a hard season, but the drivers for survival have been deleted. I need to point out a pattern documentation here. In 42% of our clergy-based NDEs, the angel or figure uses a teaching metaphor that matches the narrator's specific background. But Thomas's Gabriel used a logistical metaphor, 1,500 miles for a box of cereal. That's data. That's a specific measurement of supply chain bandwidth. Here's where the pattern gets interesting. Thomas is 62. He's a priest in Chicago. He has no background in agriculture. He has no background in supply chain management. Yet he is describing a system partition that is coming on June 21st. Is this June 21st of this year? Next year? The timeline in these accounts is always the hardest part to map because in that state, time isn't a sequence. It's a simultaneous file. But there's a cliffhanger here that I can't ignore. Thomas saw embers, little lights of people preparing. I want to know if anyone listening right now has felt that urgent need to plant or store starting around May of 2026, because if you have, you might be one of those embers he saw from 50 miles up. Listen to what happened when Thomas finally opened his eyes. The first thing I smelled was the disinfectant. It was sharp and cold like a knife in my nose. Then the pain hit me. It wasn't a pulse anymore. It was a wall. My chest, my arm, my head, everything was screaming. I tried to speak. I tried to say June 21st. I tried to say plant the beans. But all that came out was a wet, rattling sound. I saw a nurse. She was young. She had a ponytail and a mask on. She was looking at a monitor. When she saw my eyes open, she froze. She called out for a doctor. I didn't care about the doctor. I didn't care about the pain. I just kept thinking about that 73-year-old woman, Dorothy. I kept thinking about my grandmother's kitchen. I kept thinking about the thread of glass that holds our world together. I am writing this now, 10 days after the crash, because the urgency hasn't left me. It has only gotten stronger. Every time I close my eyes, I see the math of the grocery store shelves. I see the empty hands. I have nothing to gain from this. I have no ministry to build. I am a man who was almost crushed to death on the I-90 and who came back with a manual I never asked for. Please, I am not asking you to believe me. I am asking you to look at your own hands. Do they know how to tend the earth? Do they know how to save a seed? If they don't, you have time. Not much time, but you have time. The manifestation begins on June 21st. Pray. Trust Jesus. But for the sake of your children, plant something. Teach them the code, because the season is changing and the trucks are farther away than you think. The ICU was too quiet. That was the first thing that bothered me when I stabilized. In my vision, the world was full of this shimmering mechanical hum, the sound of systems turning, of gears grinding together. But in that hospital bed 10 days ago, there was only the sound of the ventilator in the next room and the squeak of the nurse's rubber-soled shoes. I was 62 years old, and I felt like a machine that had been taken apart and put back together with 3 or 4 crucial bolts missing. I kept closing my eyes, trying to get back to that aerial view. I needed to see the silos again. I needed to see if the math had changed. But every time I drifted off, I didn't see the silos. I saw the impact. I saw the silver grill of that truck. I saw the dashboard clock, 7:42 a.m. I saw Dorothy's face in the rearview mirror. And then, like a record skipping and finding a new groove, the crash would vanish and I would be back with Gabriel. But we weren't in the air anymore. We were in a space that felt like a library, but there were no books. There were just layers of light. Gabriel showed me a specific layer. He called it the 1940 to 1980 block. I saw thousands of images at once, but I could focus on any one of them. I saw a man in a flat cap in 1952 sharpening a scythe with a whetstone. I saw a woman in 1963 kneeling in a garden, her fingers deep in the dark soil, feeling for the roots of a carrot. I saw my own mother in 1974. She was standing at our kitchen table in Chicago. She had 24 jars of tomatoes lined up. She was checking the seals on the lids. I remember the sound they made when they cooled, that little pop that meant the food was safe. Gabriel communicated to me that this was legacy knowledge. He showed me that these people weren't just working, they were maintaining the foundation of the world. They were the ones who held the code for how to survive a hard season. Then he swiped his hand, and that layer vanished. He replaced it with the 2000 to 2026 block. It was a desert. I don't mean there was no water. I mean there was no knowledge. I saw parents in their 30s and 40s. They were smart, they were fast, they were connected to the entire world through the little screens in their pockets, but their hands were empty. That was the word Gabriel used again. I saw a man in a modern kitchen. He had $1,000 worth of stainless steel appliances around him. He had a pantry full of colorful boxes. But Gabriel showed me what would happen if the electricity went out for 14 days. I saw the man standing in that beautiful kitchen, looking at his children, and he didn't know how to do a single thing to feed them. He didn't know how to build a fire. He didn't know how to cook a raw grain. He didn't even know how to find clean water if the tap stopped running. He had deleted the code. Gabriel looked at me, and his eyes were like 2 points of light that could see every mistake I'd ever made in my 62 years. The modern world has traded its foundation for convenience, he communicated, and the convenience is about to be withdrawn. June 21st is the date the withdrawal begins to manifest in the physical. I felt this incredible, crushing urgency. I tried to ask him why he was telling a priest. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a survivalist. I'm a man who reads the liturgy and visits the sick. Gabriel's response was a download of data that nearly made my spirit break. When I map the patterns here, I need to pause for a second because Thomas is describing a legacy code deletion. In the beta framework, we look at human history as a series of data layers. Each generation is supposed to carry the drivers, the basic instructions from the previous one. Think of it like an old manual transmission on a car from 1975. Basically, what that means is, if you don't know how to work the clutch and the gear shift manually, the car won't move. You can't just press a button and expect the computer to do it for you. What Gabriel is showing Thomas is that the current generation has replaced the manual transmission of survival with an automatic system that is managed by someone else. And that system, the supply chain, the grid, the just-in-time delivery, is what we call fragile architecture. I've looked at my research notes from 4 other accounts from the Great Lakes region. 2 of them, both women in their 70s, describe this same empty hand sensation. They saw their grandchildren floating above the earth, disconnected from the soil. But Thomas is the only one who identifies this as a spiritual neglect. The thing that caught my attention was, Thomas is a priest. He spent 22 years in silence, waiting for a sign. And the sign he gets isn't about the afterlife. It's about the math of bread. In our dataset, we call this contextual inversion. It's when a narrator receives information that is the exact opposite of their professional training. A priest gets a logistical warning. A scientist gets a spiritual vision. This is a massive authenticity marker because it shows the narrator isn't just projecting their own desires onto the experience. Thomas didn't want a lesson in logistics. He wanted a dream from God. Now, this is the part where it gets harder for Thomas to describe. Gabriel didn't just show me the problem, he showed me the spiritual why behind the gardening. He communicated to me that when a person puts a seed into the earth, they are participating in the first commandment. Stewardship. He showed me that the reason our grandparents were so steady, the reason they could walk through a Great Depression or a World War without losing their minds, was because they were rooted. They knew where their food came from. They knew how to work with the seasons. They weren't dependent on a screen to tell them if they were going to eat. Passive faith, Gabriel told me, is a faith that expects God to do what He has already given you the hands to do yourself. Sitting in a house with no food and a yard full of grass is not faith. It is a refusal of the gift of the earth. Then he showed me the thinning again. I saw the date, June 1st. I saw the grocery stores in Chicago. I saw a woman standing in the aisle at a Jewel Osco. She was looking at a gallon of milk. I saw the price tag flicker. It went from $4.12 to $7.85. I saw her face. It wasn't panic yet. It was a dawning, cold awareness that her automatic system was failing. I saw the trucks on the I-90, the same highway where my car was currently a pile of scrap metal. I saw a line of 20 semi-trucks pulled over on the shoulder. They weren't broken down. They were out of fuel. I saw the math of the fuel reserves. In the vision, the fuel levels were represented by red bars above the cities. Most of the bars were at less than 10%. The trucks travel 1,500 miles to bring the bread, Gabriel communicated. If the fuel bar drops to 0, the bread stays in the field and the field is 1,500 miles away from the child. He pointed to a backyard in a suburb of Chicago. I saw a family, a father and 2 young kids. They were digging up a patch of grass. It was hard work. They were sweating. They looked tired. But Gabriel showed me their spiritual bar. It was glowing bright green. These are the prepared, he told me. When the thinning comes, they will not be the ones in the bread line. They will be the ones who can share a bowl of soup with a neighbor who has nothing. Preparation is not selfishness. It is the ability to be a shepherd when the world has no leaders. I felt the urgency like a physical weight pressing on my chest. I wanted to scream at the people in the cities to buy seeds. I wanted to tell them to buy 50-pound bags of rice and 25-pound bags of beans. I wanted to tell them that the June 21st manifest was not a theory. Suddenly, I felt a sharp, burning sensation in my left side. The library of light flickered. I saw the silver grill of the truck again, 7:42 a.m. The sound of the glass. I was back in the ICU. The nurse was checking my IV. She saw my heart rate spiking on the monitor. "Father Thomas, you need to breathe," she said. Her voice was calm, but I could see her looking at the screen. I grabbed her arm. I didn't mean to, but I was desperate. I tried to say June 21st, but my throat was so dry it felt like I was swallowing sand. "Seeds," I croaked. That was the only word I could get out. "Tell them. Seeds." She just patted my hand and told me I was safe. She thought I was delirious from the trauma. She thought my 62-year-old brain was misfiring because of the impact. But I knew. I knew that I was the one who was safe in that hospital bed. But the people out there on the streets, the ones with the empty hands, they were the ones in danger. I was reviewing this and something stood out. Thomas is describing a system partition. In our research, this is when a narrator sees two different outputs for the same population. Group A, the prepared, has a green bar, stability. Group B, the dependent, has a red bar, crisis. What's interesting is the specific numbers he's getting. 1,500 miles for bread. Milk jumping from $4.12 to $7.85. This is high-resolution data persistence. Usually NDEs are abstract. The world was dark or there was a struggle, but Thomas is getting a specific data download regarding inflation and logistics. Basically, what that means is his consciousness isn't just seeing a vision, it's accessing a predictive archive. Think of it like a weather satellite. It's not causing the storm. It's just looking at the atmospheric data, the pressure, the wind speed, and calculating where the storm will hit. Gabriel is showing Thomas the atmospheric data of the American economy. Let me show you what I'm noticing. Thomas is 62. He spent 22 years waiting for God to speak. And when God finally speaks, it's through the voice of a logistics manager. This is the beta framework in action. The knowledge retrieval isn't about theology. It's about the legacy code of the human species. I have to ask the community a research question here. We've had 3 other submissions this month that mentioned June 21st. They didn't mention trucks. They didn't mention bread. They mentioned a shift in the light. If anyone listening has seen that date, June 21st, in a dream or an experience, I need you to tell me in the comments. We are trying to determine if this is a global system event or a specific regional warning. Here's what happened as Thomas began to realize the weight of the message he was carrying. I spent the next 3 days in the hospital trying to make sense of the math. I am a 62-year-old priest. I am not a mathematician, but I couldn't stop calculating the bread math. If a city of 2.7 million people like Chicago has only 3 days of food in the stores and the trucks are 1,500 miles away, what happens on day 4? I saw the answer in the vision. I saw the thinning turn into a fracture. But Gabriel showed me that the fractured doesn't have to be a tragedy. It can be a return. He showed me a neighborhood in a working class part of the city. I saw people who didn't even know each other's names. I saw them standing on their front porches. One man had a bag of potatoes he'd grown in 5-gallon buckets on his balcony. Another woman had a box of canned soup she'd stored in her hall closet. They weren't fighting, they were linking. That was the word. They were connecting their small systems together to create a community grid. This is the purpose of the warning, Gabriel communicated, to give the people of God the chance to be the foundation. If you prepare now, you will not be part of the panic. You will be part of the peace. He showed me that the June 21st date was a manifestation point. It's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of the season of truth, a season where we find out what we actually believe and what we actually know. I am writing this now because I am afraid. I am not afraid of the thinning. I am afraid that I won't be able to tell enough people in time. I remember the 1974 jars in my mother's kitchen. I remember the sound of the pop. That sound was a seal of safety. It was a guarantee that her family would eat, no matter what happened to the trucks or the stores. We have lost that sound. We have traded the pop of the jar for the click of a mouse, and the mouse cannot feed your children when the screen goes dark. I beg you, I am a nobody. I am a priest who almost died on the highway. I have no ministry to build. I just have this weight in my soul. Buy a packet of seeds. Even if you live in an apartment, buy a container and some soil. Plant a bean. Teach your child that life comes from the earth, not from a cardboard box. Store the rice, store the beans, buy a few extra cans of soup every time you go to the store. Don't do it in fear. Do it in stewardship. Do it because Gabriel showed me that the prepared are the ones who will carry the light through the season of truth. I close my eyes and I see the silver grill of the truck. 7:42 a.m., I hear the humming of the glass, and then I hear Gabriel's voice. The warning is a gift. Do not waste the time. The crash didn't leave me. It stayed in the room like a physical guest. Even while Gabriel was showing me the future of the American food grid, I could feel the cold wind from the shattered windshield of my car. I could hear the dashboard clock, that little digital heart, still ticking at 7:42 a.m. It was like my mind was a television set trying to shoot different channels at the exact same time. One channel was the Dan Ryan Expressway, the sparks, the blood, the sound of Sister Dorothy crying out for help in the back seat. The other channel was Gabriel, and Gabriel was showing me the manual. He communicated to me that the season of truth, the one beginning on June 21st, required a specific kind of data retrieval. He showed me that the legacy code wasn't just a general idea of gardening, it was specific. He showed me 3 specific archive files. The first was the potato. I saw a single potato sitting in a dark cellar. Gabriel showed me that this was a high-density data packet. He showed me that a potato could grow in poor soil, in small containers, and provide the energy to keep a family moving when the stores were empty. He showed me the math of the spud, how 1 potato could become 10 and 10 could become 100. The second was the bean. He showed me the dried beans my grandmother kept in glass jars in 1974. He communicated that these were long-term storage buffers. They didn't need a refrigerator. They didn't need a grid. They just needed a dry shelf and a pot of water. He showed me that the nitrogen the beans put back into the soil was like a system update for the earth itself. The third was the squash, the hard-skinned kind, pumpkins and butternuts. He showed me that these were natural encryption. Their thick skins protected the food inside for months without any electricity. These 3 are the foundation, Gabriel communicated. If a family has these 3 and the knowledge to save their seeds, the thread of glass may break, but the family will remain standing. He looked at me, and I felt the weight of my 62 years. I felt every Sunday I'd spent talking about faith without ever mentioning the soil. I felt a deep, biting regret. We have taught the people how to pray for their daily bread, but we have not taught them how to be the ones who grow it. Tell them to teach the children, he repeated. The children are currently living on a trial version of reality. They think food is something that appears in a plastic bag. They need the full version. They need to see the seed. They need to feel the dirt. They need to understand that life is a partnership with the Creator, not a transaction with a corporation. Then he showed me the embers one last time. I saw the map of Chicago. I saw the neighborhoods I've served for 2 decades. I saw a small house on the west side. I saw a woman in her 60s, about my age. She was in her backyard, and she was hammering together a raised bed made of old scrap wood. She was pouring a bag of soil into it. Gabriel showed me her system status. She wasn't afraid. She was compiling. She was taking the information she'd received in her own heart and turning it into a physical reality. Gabriel showed me that when the thinning begins on June 21st, this woman's house will be a node of peace. Her neighbors will come to her because she has the code. She will have the extra potatoes. She will have the jars of beans. She will be the shepherd because she chose to prepare. Preparation is love made practical, Gabriel told me. Suddenly, the library of light began to dissolve. The shimmering hum of the glass returned, but it was deeper now. It sounded like the low-end vibration of a massive church organ. I saw the silver grill of the truck, 7:42 a.m. The impact, the white flash. I felt the tubes in my throat. I felt the tape on my skin. I felt the 62-year-old body that had been broken and mended. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was the ceiling tiles of the ICU. I counted them. There were 36 tiles in my immediate field of vision. I needed to count them. I needed to hold on to something that was physical, something that was here, but my heart was still there. Analyzing this one specific part, I need to bring this back to the beta framework for a moment, because what Thomas is describing is a parity check. In computer science, a parity check is when the system looks at a block of data to see if it's been corrupted or if it matches the original manual. Gabriel is showing Thomas that the manual of human survival has been corrupted by the noise of modern convenience. Basically, what that means is the system has forgotten how to perform its basic functions because it's been relying on an external server, the global supply chain, for too long. I want to look at the research notes from our clerical data set. Out of 104 accounts from priests and pastors, exactly 14 of them mention a specific instruction set involving potatoes or beans. Why these crops? If I look at it through the radio technician lens, these crops are like high-fidelity components. They are the parts of the system that are most resistant to static, which in this case is the loss of the power grid or the transportation network. They are the manual backup for a digital world. From everything I've tracked so far, Thomas is providing us with predictive metadata. June 21st, the 1,500-mile supply line, the price of milk jumping to $7.85. These aren't vague spiritual symbols. These are specific data points that we can track in the real world. If we see a significant disruption in the fuel reserves or a sudden jump in agricultural pricing around that June 21st window, we are no longer looking at a near-death experience. We are looking at a system warning that was broadcast to a 62-year-old priest on the I-90. I've been doing this for a long time. I've analyzed hundreds of accounts, and I have to be honest with you, this one makes my own system bar turn yellow. It's too specific to be a hallucination. It's too logistical to be a dream. Listen to the final plea Father Thomas made to me from his recovery ward. I am a priest. I believe in the resurrection of the body and the life of the world to come. But I am telling you now, as a man who has stood on the other side of the thread of glass, that the life of the world now depends on your obedience to the soil. I am 62 years old. I don't have much time left to be a gardener. But I have ordered my seeds. I have ordered 5-gallon buckets and potting soil for the rectory balcony. I am going to plant potatoes. I am going to plant beans. I am going to teach the altar servers how to save a seed. I remember my grandmother's kitchen in 1974. I remember the smell of the damp earth in the spring. I remember the pop of the jars. That wasn't just old-fashioned living. That was the full version of humanity. That was the code that Gabriel wants us to retrieve. June 21st is not the end. It is the update. It is the moment the manifest begins to show us the truth of our dependency. Don't wait for the price of milk to hit $7. Don't wait for the shelves to turn into red bars of emptiness. Act now. Not in panic, not in fear. Act in the calm, steady faith of a steward. The warning is a gift of time. I remember the silver grill of the truck. I remember the white light. I remember the feeling of being 50 miles up and seeing the math of America. The math doesn't lie. The system is thin. The thread of glass is vibrating. Plant the seed. Store the grain. Teach the child. Trust Jesus Christ with your soul, but trust the earth with your hands. He gave you both for a reason. I am Father Thomas. I am a nobody from Chicago, but I have seen the embers, and I want your home to be one of the lights that stays on when the season of truth arrives. May God give you the wisdom to hear and the strength to dig. I need to stop here and look at something. I'm sitting here with Thomas's transcript and I'm looking at my own research archive. I don't have a model for this. I don't have a framework that comfortably holds a logistical revelation from an angel Gabriel about the price of milk in Chicago. But I'm an analyst, and when the data is this consistent, when the signal is this clear, I have to report it. Thomas's experience suggests that our consciousness network is trying to send us a legacy patch. It's trying to remind us of the skills we deleted 40 years ago before the system fracture occurs. Let me show you what I'm noticing. June 21st. That's the date we're tracking now. I'm not a preacher. I'm just the guy with the radio tubes trying to hear the symphony through the static. But if Father Thomas is right, if the math of the bread is as fragile as he saw from 50 miles up, then the most spiritual thing you can do today might be to buy a bag of potatoes and a packet of heirloom seeds. I'm genuinely asking the community, does the date June 21st mean anything to you? Have you seen it? Have you felt this urgency to return to the soil? We are collecting the data. We are tracking the embers. Because if the thinning is coming, we need to make sure the code is ready. I honestly don't know what to make of this, which is why I'm putting it here, not as evidence, but as a question I'm holding. What would you make of it? I'm Zeke. This is Near Death Experiences, and we are still listening.